So we're going to take a survey of the cat vessels in the thoracic region here. Here's the head, and moving inferiorly, of course, we recognize the heart and the lungs. So we're going to start with the veins, and veins are going to converge and lead to the superior vena cava. So we're going to start away from the heart and lead back to it, because that's the way the blood flow would go. Of course, the most notable one here is the transverse vein. That's a cat-specific vessel. The large vessel that you see here that it drains into, this is the left external jugular vein, and this is the right external jugular vein. How do you know it's the external? Well, your landmark is the transverse scapular vein on this side, and the transverse scapular vein, this large one over here. Let me hook it for you. Right there. So the transverse scapular vein will join in with the external jugular, and that's how you know it's the external jugular vein. The internal jugular vein, typically we don't really see it very well on cats because it's very small, and even in your notes it says don't even try to find it. But when we find it, we tag it. So this is the internal jugular vein. Again, transverse scapular drains into the external jugular, and another landmark is the transverse vein here. All right, well, also on this side, here's our external jugular, and we can see deep over here the transverse scapular vein draining into it. You can see it right here. See that large one? I'll move it.
Got it.
And it looks like it's going over the cat's shoulder. That's why we call it transverse scapular. Okay, next vessels. Let's do the vessels of the arm leading back. Here we have the brachial vein, and then once it's in the axillary region, we call it the axillary vein, and then the subclavian vein. This branch that's coming from the subscapularis, that's the subscapular vein. See how it's coming from the actual muscle? So that's a good landmark, subscapular vein. So subscapular vein is going to merge with the axillary vein, and then after it does, we call it the subclavian vein. The subclavian vein is going to merge with the external jugular and internal jugular, and this part right here now is called the brachiocephalic vein, the right brachiocephalic vein. Same thing on this side. We have the brachial vein coming up, and we see this vein coming off of the subscapularis. Francois, can you hold that back for me? So we can see this vein right here coming off of the subscapularis, merging with the axillary vein, and once the two merge, we now call this the subclavian vein. Now we see our external jugular and internal jugular merging with the subclavian vein, and that's going to make the left brachiocephalic vein. This vein here was serving the anterior chest wall, so this is your internal thoracic vein. We also see two blood vessels coming from the back body wall. These are the vertebral veins coming back to the superior vena cava. So the left and right brachiocephalic veins will merge to form the superior vena cava, and the vertebral veins in your handouts, we show them diving into the superior vena cava. But you should be ready to find anomalies where the vertebral veins can actually go into the brachiocephalic veins. In fact, on their cat over there, I saw on one side the vertebral vein going into the brachiocephalic vein, and on the other side it was going into the superior vena cava.
Is that an error?
No, that's just, we get that kind of presentation. Mm-hmm.
Just like with the cat that had two inferior vena cavas?
Yeah, but that is really an anomaly, and we wouldn't use that cat for the inferior vena cava. But the vertebral veins all bets are off. Be ready for the two different presentations because it's going to be one way or the other.
And those are the ones that you said they disappear or
Yes.
they just pop out of nowhere?
Yes, see, they're coming out from the back of the body wall because they have been descending through the transverse foramen of the cervical vertebra. They've been coming off of the brain. Now we again have the superior vena cava here, and on the side, if you see, Francois, will you hold this all the way over for me? If you see the lungs pushed all the way over, and you see a large vein traveling on the inside of the chest wall, way, way back behind the lungs, that's the azygos vein. Okay, so that's not the inferior vena cava. That's not. So if you see the lungs pulled over, it's azygos. Now, what does the inferior vena cava look like? Now you can release. The inferior vena cava can be tagged here, in between the lungs, on the superior aspect of the diaphragm, but it also can be tagged, of course, down here in the abdominal cavity. So again, your landmark is, if you see a blue vessel tagged in between the lungs, it's inferior vena cava. But if you see it tagged on the posterior back body wall behind the right lung, it's the azygos vein.